I decided no time like the present to cover the subject of tools used when you're working on these antique phonographs. In the last video I mentioned about cheap tools and not using crap when you work on something. Take pride in your tools. Here's just a selection of some of the tools I use, not necessarily on these particular machines, but other machines for different projects. Every tool has a purpose and you don't always use all of them on one project. One thing, clamps. This is just one example of a clamp. They come in all shapes and sizes for different purposes. This is a very small one, which is more typical to be used on Victrolas and stuff. Always something to be clamped, always. You're gluing two pieces of wood together, you need to clamp it. You need to, keep it from falling apart. This one is a forged steel, made in USA, heat treated by the Cincinnati tool. A lot of the tools I use are almost as old or even older than the machines I'm working on. This is another example of this is an antique in itself. Cincinnati Tool Company, long since gone. High quality, very high quality. I never, ever buy cheap. I don't care if it's made in China or anywhere else. Cheap clamps, don't buy those. Not that I would buy it made in China. This is another type of clamp. This is a wood clamp. This is more, for small jobs, like say a little piece of veneer there, whatever. You would clamp that. Use a couple pieces of wood between the jaws. You don't mar anything up, and you squeeze it together gently. You don't have to. When working with wood, you don't have to just go totally Hercules on it and squeeze it to death and mark the wood. Don't do that. Here's another clamp. This is a wood clamp. This is actually older than most of the Victrolas I do work on. This is from the turn of the century. And a very, very high quality clamp. Excellent for holding two pieces of cabinet together that you've glued a joint or something in there that's gotten loose with age. You can see this one was made by the Speed Clamp. Bosch Speed Clamp, patented April 8th, 1913. The Smith and Edge Manufacturing Company, Bridgeport, Connecticut. Long, long gone now, but their tools remain. High quality stuff. Always use good quality clamps, and you can never really have enough of them. I have hundreds of clamps. Always picking them up. You never know. Good to have. Another extremely useful tool for me working on these machines. This is the Eifel geared plier wrench. These are highly collectible in their own right, and if you look them up on eBay, you're going to see probably about 30 or 40 of them on there. Collectors of tools like these because they are actually dated. This one is an 8.5 model from 1941. You can see it says it right on there. It's a little hard to read. You see, it's the Eifel tool. These are interchangeable jaws in these. As you can see, there's the jaws right there, different sizes and shapes for different applications. Extremely useful. I'm always using these tools. It has an incredible amount of clamp power to it. You can really clamp down on something good on that. I have several here. I probably own about 40 of these. Because yes, I do collect them along with other stuff. This one is one of the later ones from July 1959. It's the geared plier wrench made by the Plier Wrench Company, Chicago, Illinois. It has a wire cutter in it, not extremely good one, but it does work for heavy wire. It has the jaws that are extremely useful for making springs and bending springs in wire. You can clamp down on this very securely. And this, because it's the later one, it does have the coated handle on it. The older ones don't have that. But an extremely useful tool. I use it for dozens and dozens of things all the time. Oilers. These are the oilers that are made for things like sewing machines, typewriters, and antique phonographs. You ever wonder how you can get into those tight spots on a motor without making a mess and oiling it? Well, this is it. They come with short spouts, longer spouts, more curved spouts, but this is just one, a small one. They come larger sizes too. You won't be able to buy these new anymore because quality things simply just aren't made anymore like this. You'd have to go to a flea market or a tag sale, estate sale. You'll see one. Don't pass them up. Grab them. That's what you need to oil your Victrola or other antique phonograph or your sewing machine or your typewriter or other mechanical device. We already went over wood chisels in the last video. Here we have a couple pairs of pliers. Very useful for fishing things out of stuff. This one was made by Crowder, made in USA. It's high quality. This is not junk. I do not buy junk tools. These are antiques. That's extremely useful if you need to get in somewhere to pull out a pin or put a bearing in someplace, or some little thing you've dropped in the motor. That'll go right in there and pull it right out. Now this one, I think, is that who made this one? Utica, another old and now gone tool company. Gone. A lot of tool companies just source all their crap from China now, and I have nothing whatever to do with them. Now screwdrivers we covered before. These are ordinary screwdrivers, but they're high quality ordinary screwdrivers and not junk. These did not come from the dollar store. This is a Mac tool. I don't know what this cost because I have a tendency to buy my tools used, and I did with this guy. I bought this broken actually. Mac Tools has a lifetime warranty on their tools. They swapped out the shaft for nothing for me, and I basically have a new screwdriver again. These are your, for wood screws, things like that. Stuff that's not really that critical. These are not hollow ground. What do I mean by hollow ground? You see the wedge shape of the head on that? Okay, that's a wedge. That means that only a small part of that tip of that screw, the sun's being an irritating pain in the ass, only a small part of the tip of that actually contacts in the slot of the screw, and the potential for kind of buggering something up is there. These are obviously more automotive use, but they have their uses on Victrolas. Victrolas are kind of a mixture of wood screws and metal screws. For metal screws, I use this. This is the Chapman manufacturing company. This is actually only about 10 years old. Chapman is still around. They still make these sets. You sometimes get some really nice antique ones on eBay. You see that? Right there? Yeah, I support Chapman 100%. Assembling America since 1936. Assembling my Victrola since 1986. Okay. Let's get a big one so you can actually see what I'm talking about. This is a hollow ground screwdriver tip. You see how? Wow, that sun's bright. Right in here, the curve, the shoulder there, it's not a wedge shape, but it comes down to an actual slot. This is made to perfectly fit into the slot of a slotted screw used on a machine screw, for instance. That's a good example. Which is used on these, in the motors, turntables, not so much out here, but good idea to use these too. But that's a hollow ground, hollow ground screw tip there. And that's what you want for working on machines. Machine screws in your typewriters, your sewing machines, your bicycles, your phonographs, your telephones, anything antique that has machine screws in it, this is what you use. So you don't bugger up the screw heads. That's what this is for. Yes, they're a little bit expensive. They come in a kit. They have more than one kit. All different kinds of kits for different, applications you might be using it for. But this one is perfect for what I do in the stuff that I play with. And it comes with all different heads that snap into a handle. It even has a little ratchet there and a hand spinner. With these, they're not guaranteed not to screw up your screw heads. That's, a lot of operator, in there is responsible for that too. You have to use common sense. If it's not coming out, then you use penetrating oil, or you heat it, or you do something else. You take, precautions. But that's a hollow ground screwdriver bit set from Chapman Manufacturing. I use that set constantly when working on these kinds of machines. Along with these screws, not every screw needs a hollow ground screw tip. Some of them come out very easily, like the ones that are screwed into wood. Then you can get away with these. Hammers. Obviously, not all of these are going to be used for Victrolas. Usually, it's the tiny ones that I use for Victrolas. I've had this hammer, I don't know, 30, 40 years. Just a very good quality, American-made hammer, good quality wood, high quality steel on the head. Even after all these years, it's not all mushroomed over and buggered up. Every now and then you work a tack or something and you do need those. Brass hammer. You always want a brass hammer in case you have to hit something metal, you don't want to mar it up. Use a brass hammer, or I don't have a wooden mallet here, but I use a lot of that too. Sometimes you will run into something that requires a socket wrench. And that's one of these. Say the lock screw on a Victrola, you can use this to take it off. On the Victrola motor that holds it from underneath. You could use this to hold it while you screw from the top, or you can just ratchet it off with this. This is an Snk Socket Set. Snk is not a throwaway tool, it is an American-made company. well, a company that makes tools in the USA. They've been around since the 1920s, and they're very high quality. You can buy these off eBay from dealers, or just contact the Snk company themselves. They're guaranteed for life. If you ever have a problem, now I mostly use these for automotive applications. Many of you know I also play with cars, as you can see, and I use these all the time. This is one I keep aside just for Victrola work. Goes in that special toolbox. They stopped making the metal boxes like this probably in the 1980s. So, but you can still find them on eBay. And don't worry ever about buying one of these used, because if there's ever a problem with the sockets, you send it back to Snk. They take care of you. High quality. No dollar store crap there. No throwaway tools. No Home Depot specials. And here, of course, the 7/16 wrench I also use for, you know, motorboard nuts underneath the, you know, underneath the screw, the nut on the bottom of that screw on a Victrola motorboard. Little adjustables. Don't you really use big ones for Victrola? Every now and then. This is the J.H. Williams and Company. They were around for a long time. They still are, though not everybody realizes that. They're still around. They are actually the industrial tool arm of Snap-on Tools Corporation these days. They're very expensive tools. And extremely high quality. They always were. This is something I just kind of keep around to use. I find reasons to use this just because. This is a Coase. Whoops. A Coase patent pipe wrench. Coase was known as the first patent for a wrench you could actually adjust with one finger, like that. So you're working with one hand, you can adjust the wrench with one finger. They come, oh, this is the tiniest one they make. They are made all the way up to huge sizes. You know, very, very large industrial size. This is the tiny one. Made in USA, December 24th, 1901. Trying to remember, the metal handle was made sometime, I believe, between the teens, the very early teens, and the 1920s. So this is going to be older than the somewhere in the mid-1920s and down. And it's a really great shape, too. Amazingly good condition. You know, whoever owned this particular tool, probably several generations of someone, knew how to take care of their tools. Took care of them nicely. Didn't let them get all crudted up and everything else and rot away. I think we all, you know, tack tools, things like that, these come in handy. You never know when you have to do a little bit of prying on something. That's probably 50, 60, 70 years old, but it still works. I buy a lot of my tools at flea markets, estate sales, things like that, because that's where you find the quality stuff. You want junk? Go to the department store. You want crap? Go to Sears and get their new Chinese-made stuff. Used to be high-quality tools at Sears. Kind of surprised me too, but about 10, 12, 15 years ago, they slowly started integrating made-in-China tools into their line. Not the same, folks. Just not the same. I'm an American craftsman, and I expect to use American-made tools made by other American craftsmen. I don't accept substitutes. So the machines I use and I work on have all been built with tools like these, or put together and fixed, however you want to put it. This is not all the tools I use. I have a whole toolbox full of them in there, but these are the most common ones. Give you an idea of the kind of things that it's handy to have around if you're going to be doing any kind of work on these machines. Oh, I almost forgot. The stroboscope disc. This is how you set your speed to 78 RPM. Now, the trick with these is to use them. You put this on a turntable, you spin it up. You put the machine under an incandescent light bulb. Not an LED, not a fluorescent. Incandescent, old-fashioned filament-style incandescent light bulb. That is cycling at 60 cycles a second, so that when you see this spinning on the turntable, and you unfocus your eyes a little bit, when the speed is set right, this will appear just like you see it here, like it's not moving at all. At 78 RPM, it looks like it's just sitting there still. If it's moving like this, you see it doing that, then you're a little too fast, a little too slow. If it's doing this, then it's not right at all. You have to turn the knob, the speed knob, to get the speed set straight. But when it's set like that, under that incandescent light bulb, then you've got it. But you need this disc. There's all different gizmos for setting speed that are a lot more expensive than that. But this works perfectly, as long as you have the correct light bulb and you can unfocus your eyes to see it spinning, which I can still do. So But there you go. I think I covered everything, didn't I? Socket wrenches, screwdrivers, little pairs of pliers. And, you know, when it comes to these, I probably have 50 different pairs of pliers. Little cutting pliers and needle nose of all different sizes. These are just two of the most, you know, useful ones for me when I'm, you know, screwing around with stuff like this. And there you go. And clamps. And like I said about clamps, they come in all different shapes and sizes. You have bar clamps. You have wood clamps like this. C clamps. I mean, it's just endless. And not just for woodworking either, but clamps made for other things like automotive, you name it, it's there. Metalwork, you know, welding, what have you. All different kinds. And I have, in some of my videos, I'm sure you've probably seen some of my clamps hanging around my workbench. Literally hundreds. I'm always picking them up. Then again, I'm kind of a sucker for really good quality, American-made vintage tools. When I see them, and I see people stupid enough to discard them, I scoop them up. And I have an awful lot of them. Boxes and boxes and crates full of them. Sometimes I sell them occasionally, but most of the time I hoard them because they're irreplaceable. And there you go. Get some good tools. Spend the money. They'll be with you a lifetime. You know, and they're worth it. There's such a difference between a cheap piece of crap and a high quality tool. Something you can be proud to own. And is it made in the land of virus? There, I had to get that in. That's a grudge that's not going away anytime soon.